Guys, 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 they're fixing Miles! Hey everyone, welcome to Comic Story and Talks About Some Stuff. And today I'm going to tell you how Marvel has finally acknowledged the problem with Miles. Oh, this is such a throwback to all of you guys who watched my problem with Miles video, because now there's no problem with Miles, and huzzah! Yeah! Alright, so you're probably wondering, Benny, what do you mean by Miles Morales has been fixed? Well, they're acknowledging the problems with Miles Morales. If you're wondering where you are, I'm Benny. I do Comic Storian. We talk about comic books, and I bring you weekly commentary videos where I talk about problems within the industry or stuff that is being fixed, like Miles Morales. But to fully understand what is going on and why we need to be here, let's roll back to my complaints about Miles Morales 7 months ago. 7 months ago, when the Spider-Verse movie was coming out, I made a video in which I stated the problem with Miles Morales. And the problem that I foresaw is Miles is like the equivalent of down the street from Peter Parker. He's like 5 miles away. And I really harped on that fact, and a lot of you decided not to watch the rest of the video, but the fact is, if he's down the street, why is he never called upon? Why is he never helping Peter? Why is Peter never helping him? Recently, Miles fought against Carnage, and an entire section of the city was being fought by Carnage, and Peter was nowhere to be found. Things like that just don't make sense, and that's the big problem with Miles, in my opinion, because they've been trying to make Miles his own character, but basically still make him Spider-Man, which was the point of what I was saying before in the previous video. They just wanted Miles to be Spider-Man of New York, so in order to do that, you can't ever acknowledge Peter Parker. And that also means that Peter Parker can't ever acknowledge Miles, which makes things weird and awkward because they just pop up once in a blue moon, high five, and then disperse. Much like the Spider-Man 2 game, when you're stopping robberies and Miles just swings in and he does the finger thing with you and then he leaves. And that was kind of my problem with Miles. I felt that if you're going to put Miles in the main timeline, in 616, which is not where he started, but if we're going to do that, he should be more incorporated with Peter, with things going on in the Spider-Man universe, Spider-Man villains, Spider-Man himself, and they should be having more crossover and stuff like that. A lot of you guys disagreed and agreed with that, and it doesn't matter because Marvel apparently agrees with me. You see, we're going to move to the Spider-Man 2 video game, and I'm not going to give any major spoilers, so don't worry about that, but we are going to be discussing lightly Miles Morales' role within the Spider-Man 2 video game. So if you're trying to avoid everything, don't worry about it. But I'm not too concerned about it. I don't think anybody really played Spider-Man 2. I don't think it was that popular. I mean, it didn't even win a single award at the Game Awards. Come on. What do you guys think it is? Baldur's Gate? Ha! Anyway, in the Spider-Man 2 game, Miles Morales' role is generally the other Spider-Man. When there's 2 of them out there, they call themselves the Spider-Men. The problem I had with Miles Morales' take within Spider-Man 2 is that he really didn't do anything for the main plot until the ending. He's at the very beginning of the game, and then he kind of wanders off on his own adventures involving his high school, involving getting band instruments back, and doing a bunch of other side quests that are Miles Morales-centric. It's all about Miles and his community, which is great and a great game, but he really didn't do anything that much in the Spider-Man 2 game. What eventually happens is in Act 3, that's acknowledged. It's acknowledged that Miles has been trying to reach out to Peter. It's acknowledged that Miles has been trying to be a part of things, but he's been getting ignored or he's been getting, sent to voicemail. And so I liked that portrayal of it in the game because the game acknowledged the problem with Miles. If he is literally across the river from Peter and Peter's fighting, I'm not going to name the villains in that just in case you guys haven't played it yet. But if he's fighting all these big villains that are doing big things, why isn't Miles there? Because that's a problem I've had with the comic series for a long time. Miles is down the street. Now, in the comic world, we still need to have a Peter Parker-centric storyline. My argument is that Miles should be at least getting referenced or brought over or in some kind of crossover event. So Marvel's kind of acknowledged that. They finally announced a comic series that we've all wanted since the inception of Miles. They've announced that Miles is now going to be teaming up with Peter on the regular in the Spider-Men comic book coming out next year. Great! That's awesome! That means that we finally have a book where Miles and Peter are going to team up and it will make sense. But then Gang War also came out. And in Gang War, Peter's swinging through the city. He's fighting against Slide as Slide is going through the city. And then eventually he says the Spider-Men are going to stop you. Slide is confused by that. But Slide ends up getting beat by Miles. And it doesn't end there. Miles then calls out Peter. He's like, bro, you could have called me. You could have texted me. Did you think I didn't need you? I even put the panel up over here. What is it, Pete? Be real. You left us for 6 months, man. You left me. I had to step up and be the Spider-Man. You apparently were too busy to be, and it sucked. It really freaking sucked. I needed you, and you just disappeared, bro. Spider-Man apologizes. They go back and forth for a minute, and Miles kind of blows him off. And that's what we needed. That's the continuity we needed between these two Spider-Men so that they could work together and have a collaborative goal. That's the wording, I guess, I'm going with. Yeah, we're going with that. You needed to acknowledge Peter. They teamed up for one panel in this book. That is all they did. I'm not asking for the Spider-Man book. That's just gravy on top of everything. What I wanted was an acknowledgement that Miles is in the city being Spider-Man while Spider-Man's in the city. Like going back to the situation where Peter was dealing with the Mary Jane situation and what happened with Miss Marvel and Oscorp, and I can't even remember that villain's name. It was so unimportant. Raban or something stupid like that. It was dumb. It was dumb. We can all agree. I don't even remember the guy's name. Where was Miles? No one at any point thought to call Miles. Now, I get part of that plot was Peter was ignoring everyone, but like the Avengers are dealing with Peter and Miles didn't get a single word of any of that. Nothing. It didn't make any sense. Miles was fighting Carnage, and Peter wasn't like, hey, one of my craziest villains is in town. That should have been it. It shouldn't even been like, is Miles there? It should have been like, Carnage is controlling half the city right now, Peter. Where are you, bro? I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember if Peter even showed up in the final fight. I don't think he did, because the final fight had a whole bunch of people show up that you were like, why are they here? Like Red Goblin and all that stuff. But I'm pretty sure Peter didn't even show up for the finale of the whole event, because it didn't cross over with him. Carnage Reigns event. It had Iron Man. Iron Man showed up. We had everybody but Peter. Anyway, it seems like they're trying to fix that. And on top of that, they're really establishing Miles' new abilities and the sword. The sword is becoming like a thing. Like he used it over here, and even Peter's like, you can make swords now? Cool. You probably sounded manlier with it, but you know. But the point I'm making, even if I was just trying to double check to see if Peter did show up at the very end of it, but even if Peter did show up at the very end of it, it took until the end of the event when everyone was teaming up to fight Carnage if he did show up. And I don't think he did. I don't remember Spider-Man himself showing up. I think it was Miles, Red Goblin, the Iron Man showed up, and Scorpion. I think that was the team that fought Carnage in the end, which at that point, Carnage had literally taken over New York. Like, it wasn't even like a corner. It was basically another Maximum Carnage. He took over, if you didn't read Carnage Reigns, and Peter was nowhere to be found. But that's what I'm saying. That was my issue. But they've been fixing Miles. They're trying to, one, acknowledge him in the 616, not as the other Spider-Man, as Spider-Man, next to Spider-Man. Now, that naming convention is still very confusing, and I really wish we could do it. At one point, they called him the Brooklyn Spider, and I was like, you know what? That would be better, because I would at least know who you're talking about when you say Spider-Man. But whatever, it's fine. I'll take it. Two Spider-Men's fine. And if you're gonna name the book Spider-Man, I'll take it. And he's got a lightning sword thing. That's supposed to be lightsaber sounds, but I have COVID and my brain's cooked. But yeah, that's basically where we are. Now the question is, do you think they're gonna keep making Miles important? See, that's the point of all of this, okay? If you regulate Miles to a different side of New York, if Miles is never integrated with Peter Parker, if Miles doesn't have a power set that separates him away from Peter Parker, if Miles never gets his own villains, all of which is being fixed, why is Miles even in the 616? And that was the crux of the prior argument, the problem with Miles. Because then you just made Spider-Man 2.0. Which worked in the Ultimate Universe, but does not work in 616 unless you fix these four major fundamental things. He needs to be acknowledged. He needs his own villains. He needs his own powers. He needs to stand out. And he can't stand out because he has a cooler costume than Peter. He has to stand out because he's actually his own effective superhero doing his own thing. And I feel like that's what we need to get Miles, because Miles was a big deal in the Ultimate Universe, and when he came to 616, that comic has felt, I don't know if it is, I haven't checked the numbers, it felt like it's been floundering, trying to find an identity for Miles, and the current run is doing that, and Marvel is finally trying to find an identity for Miles in 616. Ever since he showed up in the 616 mainline universe, he just seems to have been aimlessly wandering around, picking his own fights and issues that don't matter or they don't pertain to anything. The run with the Assessor and Prowler was great. And that made him feel like his own character, but they still played into stuff that was involved with Peter, and Peter wasn't around. But that's pretty much it. At this point, I'm going to ramble, start looping, and my brain's going to continue to be cooked from the COVID I'm on right now. COVID's like a cocktail in my brain. It's just... If you guys like this type of video, let me know your opinions of Miles Morales and these changeovers and what they're doing to him down below. And if you're really good, we'll do the airplane noise and I'll feed you. That's not an airplane. See you guys next time.